I have to celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should. We've come a long, long way together through the hard times and the good. I have to celebrate you, baby. I have to praise you like I should. I have to praise you. I have to praise you. I have to praise you. I have to praise you like I should. You make me glad that I'm a woman. Thinking that. And anytime I know you need it, I'm gonna please you every way I can. I have to praise you. I have to praise you. I have to praise you. I have to praise you like I should. That was good, man. Lisa, Chris, Kathy, and anybody else that may be there. Right? Show started 1 minute ago at 6 o'clock. Could be 2 minutes ago, but as far as I know. And I kicked it off with Hannah Grace singing Fatboy Slim's Praise You. I dig that jam. I like Fatboy Slim's version the best, but I figure I get muted quicker using that than I would using Hannah Grace. But we'll see. I'll get my notice in a couple hours, couple of days. Hey, Becky. Hi, Becky. So welcome, everybody, to Law and Disorder with your host, Ken Goldberg, on May 17th, 2021, 6-something in Dallas. That's Central Time. Welcome. You're all welcome. Did I, if I ever neglect to tell anybody, whether you're listening on YouTube, you're not, or listening on Facebook, listen, my home is your home. Mi casa es su casa. My podcast is your podcast. Have a good time, right? Tune in. Wait a minute. Turn on, tune in, check out. Something like that, right? Drop out. Anyways, same thing applies. Treat this like a very good hallucinogenic trip. And I am your hallucinogenic guide. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, baby. All right. So, who am I? I put that's the title of tonight's show. And as you know, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to talk about who am I or who are you, but it did help me to come up with the first song tonight, Who Are You by none other than The Who. I urge you to listen to it. ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Don't Bring Me Down. Now I was singing the Beatles version just now. And then I really like Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll. And that's the only reason I posted is I personally enjoy listening to it. I think it's a jam as much as I like Jukebox Hero. Okay. So one says put another dime in the jukebox, baby. Okay. And the other is Jukebox Hero. So welcome. But we're not going to talk about music the whole time. No, we've got other things to cover. Like, is there a theme to tonight's podcast? And I'll tell you, yes, there is a theme. Who are you? I think the question, who are you, could, in fairness, be asked any time of night or day of yourself, right? And you might as well only ask yourself because ain't nobody else got an answer to the question, who are you? Sometimes when I'm riding a bike, I don't think it happens when I'm hiking, but it does happen when I'm riding a bicycle. I hear this voice and I'm going to share the voice. I mean, it's very clear. It's my voice. I hear it. And when I hear it, it sounds like this. What? What do you want? What do you want from me? Okay. I don't have an answer, by the way. I just asked the question, what is it you want from me? And I'm asking it of me because, frankly, I don't seem to cater to Ken's whims. Well, at least I don't cater to them successfully. I may try to cater to them, but in truth, I'm very unsuccessful at least feeling like I cater to my whims. So when I say, "What do you want? What do you want from me?" It's a voice of frustration. It's a voice of quasi hostility. It's like I want to know already. I mean, I'm 68 years old. For God's sakes, what am I asking of me besides pedal the bike, watch some TV, make dinner, do a podcast? There's got to be something else, right? Underneath all of that, there's a human who's got some sort of drive. And what is that drive? What does that drive really look like? Is it that which I see? I think not. I think there's these manifold layers that I'm operating at all the time. And no matter how I try to peel the onion, so to speak, I never get to the core. There's always like, oh, I know you've all been through this. You've worked on growing up. You've worked on change. You've worked on transformation. You worked on a relationship in your life. You worked on your job. And you got to this point where you're like, I'm peeling off this layer that I discovered in my life, and peeling an onion, right? And you did it, and you felt like, wow, that was really good. And then, in short order, you were back at it. You were back, and I'm saying you. All right, let me say me. I don't know what the hell you do. Maybe you don't do any of this. Maybe I'm the only one. So let me keep it on terms we can all understand. I peel the onion, and then I turn around a week later, a day later, a month later, doesn't matter. There's something new or something that I need to revisit, something old, and I have to work my way through it. And it's none of your business how I do it or what I do. But you've already ascertained a lot of it takes place in 12-step recovery. A lot of it takes place in my personal meditation. We are what we are, says Chris. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I know a lot of people. I know what I think they are, and that doesn't necessarily align with who they think they are. So we are what we are to a large measure. But what if nobody agrees with our perception of self? I've talked about this about a month ago. I said, what about somebody who really, without intending to, alienates a lot of the people around them because they're socially inappropriate, they lack social skills, but they don't perceive that. That's why they say things and everybody goes, oh my God, that was cringeworthy. Oh, that joke wasn't funny, whatever it is, right? Or they share too much personal information, or they don't share enough personal information. But internally, they may think they've exposed themselves when they've said nothing. And on the other hand, they may have told you a lot. And maybe they're on point, maybe not. So we are what we are may be an accurate statement, but I don't think it's a definitive statement. I think definitive is if you could answer, who am I? And you could do it with some succinctness. And that may not be possible because humans are we have a lot of depth to us, typically, most of us, right? So I'm not sure you could do it succinctly, but you have to be pointed and you have to kind of know, well, what am I known for amongst my friends? Is that me? But I should know what that is, even if it's not me. Do I know why I do the things I do? Do I know why I abstain from things that I may abstain from that I think to do? How much of what I am today is merely me muttering what comes into my head, and how much of it is wisdom derive from those silent moments where I look at this thing called my mind and I really get to the truth, the reality, and I don't buy into the lies that my mind tells me. So if there's a easy answer to who am I, I haven't come across it. And even more frustrating, besides not being able to answer that readily, is I don't know that I've ever really even come close to answering it. I know that in my closest personal relations, ones that involve intimacy, long term friendship, where people I would think would their notion of Ken would closely align with my notion of Ken. And yet, um, when when I revisit with people on like when a romance breaks up and you ask the other person, well, why are you breaking up with me? And they'll often tell you something, you're like, wow, how did they get there? I mean, like my ex-wife. But it's not limited to that. I'm not sure I am the voice in my head. Well, I'm not sure you're the voice in your head either, nor am I sure I'm the voice in my head. The voice in my head, there are voices, there are thoughts, but I would be remiss, Chris, if I didn't examine the voice in my head for clues to who I am. I don't believe that while I teach Buddhism and say you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are fleeting. If you thought you were your thoughts, what we teach in Buddhism is if you are your thoughts, if you control and you own your thoughts, then never have an unhappy moment again. Only think happy thoughts. And of course, we know when we ask people to do that, it's impossible to do eventually, right? So, so we don't necessarily control this thing. We're not the voices, but the voices are absolutely a clue to who you are and how you behave. I know this because I told this group that I had a significant, I would call it spiritual breakthrough when I was living at the temple in Arizona. I was a novice monk. And while I was meditating, one day something occurred to me. Externally, I saw something and I heard myself internally, and I realized that I was thinking a negative thought that was so unnecessary, right? And so I examined it. I held it up to the light. I looked at it and I thought, wow, you know what this is? This is Ken's petty thinking, which often turns into petty action. As weird as my thoughts sometimes are, it would be way more weird to think someone else was in there. That would be weird. And I don't think that when Buddhists teach you that you're not your thoughts, that they're suggesting that there's somebody else is your thoughts. I think there's these synapses that are taking place in all of us all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those synapses, or whatever you want to call them, are creating thoughts. But those thoughts, especially when you meditate and you're like focused on the breath and you see these thoughts one after another arising, and you're like, oh, look at that. For instance, I don't take ownership of my thoughts. I take ownership of my behavior. I don't take ownership of my thoughts in large measure because I found that a lot of my thoughts were not grounded in any reality. There was no point in me owning them. For instance, you're meditating and you're focusing on the breath. And all of a sudden, you remember you're mad at somebody. You haven't seen them for a while. They're not in front of you. And next thing you know, you're demanding restitution or you're demanding an apology from them. All inside your head, the person's not there, but you're having this conversation. Oftentimes, the conversation doesn't even, it never took place, and it's not a particularly pleasant conversation. And you don't even realize you're having it a lot of times until your body physically reacts, right? So I can't I can't be my thoughts, because my thoughts be things that I'm not capable of. I'm not capable of time travel. And yet, if I wanted to, I could project into the future. I could visit the past, neither of which is particularly healthy, but I can make myself do that to my chagrin. So I got some input into what's going on up there, but I shouldn't pull up a chaise lounger, or what do you call it, the lazy boy, and sit back in that swarm of thoughts and relax and think. People say, oh, I meditate, I take a quiet time every day, or I take quiet time. That's not meditation, or it's not meditation as in any practice I know of. Now, and admittedly, mostly I know Buddhist practice. It's not just chilling and taking a quiet time. It's not putting on the headset and listening to groovy Zen music. It's being focused and being present. Most meditations encourage that one way or another. And it's not time travel. Now, some people, I've been to meditation where they're like, all right, we're going to guide you now. All right, imagine you're on a beach. Imagine you can hear the waves. Imagine the sun is setting. Imagine the sand feels cool to your back, whatever. And because of the practice that I've done, I usually am thinking, I wish you'd be quiet so I can meditate. So the different forms of meditation, and some insist on taking you somewhere you're not. Maybe it's groovy to go someplace you're not. But why is that meditation? I'm not sure, as opposed to it's just chilling and thinking. You're directing your thoughts to a beach somewhere, maybe a beach you've been to, maybe a beach you haven't. But in this practice of meditation that I have, you stay here in the moment. So there ain't no beach unless I'm at the beach. There ain't no mountains unless I'm sitting in the mountains. And so if I find myself in the mountains, I recognize that as projection and not real. But I always lived my life as though my thoughts really were full of important content, real content, real thoughts. And if I just listened and learned, I could grow up to be a good businessman, a good lawyer, a celebrity, a talk show host, whatever it is. Yeah. Sitting down, shutting up, being present right here, right now. And that kind of isn't that the book Ram Dass, Be Here Now? Does that kind of sum it up? I mean, I've read a couple of Buddhist-oriented books, and they're pretty much, wherever I go, there I am. And I think that's, wow, why can't I remember his name? Oh my gosh. Levine, Stephen Levine, or Levine. I'm not sure how I pronounce it. So, who am I? I'm not settled yet. I don't want you to think that I think I know who I am. I got some clues. I've got some fragments of who I am, but unlike most of you, I really am befuddled most of the time at the thought of who I am. I'll tell you, I've been in a couple of short-term relationships since my divorce. And I thought that I was bringing me to these new shorter-term relationships. They didn't really didn't go anywhere, and that's not important. The thing is, I was 65 when I started being single again, and yet I've been struggling the entire time with who am I? And part of that is, I'm 65 back then. Now I'm 68. Oh, well, I ride a bike. Is that who I am? I watch a lot of movies, a lot of TV. I podcast. I'm a podcaster. Um, I'm I have law degree and I have licensed in 3 states. I have been an entrepreneur. Um, I've done a bunch of stuff. So is that who I am? Is it who I was at the time that I was doing some of those things? When I was a trial lawyer, is that who I was? Or was I just showing up and doing a trial as needed? If you have answers in your life, I'm just saying you're ahead of me. Now, being ahead of me doesn't mean accuracy. Accuracy doesn't necessarily accompany speed. Um, yeah. So maybe you're just wrong about who you are. Doesn't matter. If you're fairly convinced based on the evidence, you know who you are, I'm saying you're ahead of me in that regard. I do not find enough evidence that if you were to call me to the stand as an expert witness on Ken Goldberg, that I could offer up who I am. I could tell you things I do. I could tell you things I've said. I could tell you who my friends are. I could tell you what my daily schedule is like. I'm an expert on me in that regard. You could swear me under oath, and I could give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'm still not sure that you or I would know who I am at the end. That's what you've done, not who you are. So Rachel's position is what you've done is not who you are. I don't disagree with that, but I don't know why that might be true. Why would the corollary not be true? You are what you do. I mean, in large measure, we are how we act. We could have all the good thoughts inside, but if we're on the outside, we're stealing, we're lying, we're doing things that carry negative karma, the universe would say, well, that's who you are. Forget your good intentions if you're doing bad stuff, right? So I think you could argue that being a lawyer was simply what I had done, not who I am. But I think I could probably just as well argue that when I was a lawyer, that in large measure, obviously no one thing defines me, that was part of who I am. I have law degree. I have license. I don't identify with being a lawyer as much as I identify with the identity of being a trial lawyer, because I'm not a general practitioner. And as the years went by, I did less general practice and more of appointed criminal law practice. And I enjoyed criminal law for a variety of reasons. Why did I enjoy criminal law? Most lawyers don't, and the ones that do aren't former criminals. Or, well, I don't know if I'm a former criminal. I was, like an addict. Am I ever not a criminal? So I've drawn there. Life experience had me to the point where I was very engaged in my practice. I was very good at what I did because of who I have been and probably because of who I am. So, and certainly people around me identify who I am. Part of that is he's a lawyer. I mean, I know that even now because people call me up and say, can you help me out? You're a lawyer. I was my mother's son. When I was with my mom, she introduced me as her son, not as a lawyer. She didn't introduce me as a Dallas resident so much. She would eventually mention, but when asked, who is this? My mother's reaction or response was, this is my son. My sister would tell you, this is my brother. My friends would start out by saying, this is my friend Ken. Now, depending upon where they are, they might say, he's my friend from 12-step recovery, or he's my friend, or he's my teacher from the meditation group at the temple. A lot of people call me their teacher, right? Am I what you call me? I can't tell you I'm not, and you can't tell me I'm not, right? You can say, well, the way I think of it is, you're this internal mechanism that's operating, maybe not openly, maybe more covertly, but that's who you are. And others could just say, well, you just are what you're doing. If you're doing law, then you're a lawyer. If you're doing plumbing repairs, you're a plumber. If you're counseling people, you're a counselor. Um, Whatever it is. If you're burglarizing, you're a criminal, right? Okay, so the point of this was from the beginning, the who am I is a question that I don't know why any of us would stop asking it other than out of frustration. Frustration with the lack of a coherent answer. So, but some of you may have settled in some time ago with the luxury of knowing who you are, and you may be very accurate. I've just never been there. And actually, I'm tired sometimes of growing. Sometimes I do an inventory. I say, well, this ain't bad. You're a good guy. You can afford to do this. If you don't screw up, you can keep going. And this will be who you are, riding a bike, doing podcasts, hiking sometimes, leading meditation, whatever it is. And then resign myself to being who I've been the last few years. A better brother. I was a good son towards the end. I'm a better friend. I'm a podcaster. Maybe that is who I am, at least today. And if I'm going to choose to exercise spiritual tools to grow beyond where I am, I can honestly tell you, I don't know where I'd be going. Now, some people come to me and they're looking for an enlightenment. I mean, they come right up and say, at the meditation, what can I do to become enlightened? I'm like, well, how would I know what you have to do to become enlightened? I'm not enlightened. So all I can tell you is, I heard meditation's a big part of it. So try meditating. Um, Try practicing the jhanas. Try the four noble truths and the eightfold path. In Buddhism, if it's an AA and they want to get to some higher level, well, if you've done all your steps, well, do them again. If you did them already, do them again. If you didn't do them for the first time, but do them, right? And it's not linear, right? The steps are given to you in linear fashion and they flow linear, but they're really circular because at any one moment you're traveling back to an earlier step in order to address something that came up. So I put it out there. I thought it would be a good topic is simply who are you, and challenge you all to think about it. I think you are a good friend. There you go. Now you're talking, Chris. Now you got me nailed, babe. And I am a good friend, but not to everybody. And some people think I'm not a good friend. And I'm okay with that. I thought I was a good boyfriend to somebody in the past. I mean, a good boyfriend. I thought I was. And I don't know that I wasn't, but based on the outcome, I would say everybody didn't agree to what a good boyfriend I was. And I can tell you that I always thought I was an okay son, and it was only later in life when I moved my awareness into a different space that I saw and said, oh, I sucked as a son. So what can I do better? So, and Chris says, I think you're a good friend, and that brings something up. So, I don't know how many years it's been since Gary passed away, but he's relevant to the story. So my good friend Gary, he came to Tucson when I went to Tucson, and he lived with me and my family for 18 months. We remodeled the house. He got a job locally, and his family stayed in Indiana until they got the lease ran out, and then his wife and two of his sons moved to Tucson. Gary would call anywhere from every day to maybe every 3 days max, as far as he was a good friend. And he hadn't always been a good friend, but he was the last several years of our friendship took on a different flavor, a different color, a different tint. And I really recognized that nobody was making more of an effort to be a good friend to me than was Gary. I don't know how he was as a husband or father or an employee because I had none of those roles with him, but I thought he's a really good friend. When he passed, one of the things I did was I called my oldest friend, Kerry, and I said to him at some point, you know, I have always measured how often I call friends in this sense. I never, I didn't necessarily never. I often didn't call somebody if I talked to them recently. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to annoy them. So I called Kerry and I said, you know, Gary would call me and then I would call Gary because, oh, I haven't heard from Gary today. Think I'll give him a call. It became a kind of very reciprocal thing. And I said, so I told Kerry, I said, I'm going to call you whenever I want. It may be every day, maybe multiple times a day. And you're just going to have to learn to get along with that. And he was like, okay. I never said I could. So when Gary passed and took his good friendship with him, I decided that I liked that friendship, and the best person for that friendship to take over, so to speak, was my friend Kerry, who I'd known longer than I'd known anybody. And you know what? We talk a lot more than we used to. Of course, he lost his wife. I lost Gary. I lost my wife, and if you want to count divorce. So our friendship has taken on kind of a more defined color because I decide to make more of an effort. I call Chris. I haven't known him that long, but I call him. Chris tends to text you early in the morning and say, have a good day. So there's this synergistic relationship that sprung out of a mutual admiration of riding bicycles, and so on and so on. I mean, I could run down my list of good friends, and I could probably come away from it believing that I am a good friend and that may be exactly part of who I am. I mean, maybe that's really very relevant to the question of who am I? The problem is I don't know what's relevant to the question. I don't know what the answer is. So when I hear answers, whether I agree with the answer or not, because I don't have to agree with your answer to believe you, because I believe that I'm wrong a lot of times. And so I just have to go with the flow. Be humble, you may be wrong, right? So yeah, I think it's a frustrating journey, but I don't know that it isn't an important and even necessary one, or maybe it's not. I mean, Chris kind of said where he starts. He starts with sitting down, shutting up, and being present. Maybe that's all I need to be who I am. That really may be enough. I may have bought into this consumer commercial economy, consumer capitalism, where I'm defined by things like what I do or what I own. Do I have a cool car? Well, in my case, I have a van, very uncool. Even worse, I have a banged up Prius. My bicycles can be considered cool, but by typical commercial capitalism, I'm not very cool. I don't have as many belongings as a lot of people, but I am a good consumer and I do have nice things. And I believe that those things do in some way, shape, or form define me. Just as living for almost 2.5 months in Thailand and having pretty much nothing. And when I had money, I gave it to the monks. Walking around where they call me Temple Boy because they didn't have a name in Thai for what I was doing, walking with the monks, not being a monk. They have a name. So to much of the Thai population in Chiang Mai, who is he? Oh, Farang, okay, Anglo, Temple Boy. You know, I was also a benefactor to the monks. That was as much who I was as carrying their food and being their temple boy. I mean, there's just so many shades that contextualize who we are. I don't know which ones are the most important. I think that being a good friend, a good brother, and a good son are probably three of the most important ones. I think being a good significant other, spouse, whatever you call, is probably equally important. Being a good parent. I don't talk enough about what a good parent I am, because I don't know that anybody would agree. My sister would agree I'm a better brother. My mother, I think, would have agreed I was being a better son. Chris just testified that I'm a good friend, and I think I can get a number of people to testify to that. Don't know that I get my two daughters to testify I'm a good father. Probably they would, because I am, but they certainly have their misgivings. Those have form. Yeah. Well, that's very deep, but inside, deep down, you don't have form. I've heard things like that. You know, it's kind of like the Buddhist teachings on enlightenment. You know, it sounds like an aspiration, but since I ain't been there, you know, they call the first level of enlightenment stream enterer. You've stuck your foot into the stream of awareness, and you're beginning to become enlightened. So people ask me, "Am I enlightened?" I said, if I get to stick my foot in the water in this lifetime, that will have been a monumental achievement. Will I cross the stream in this lifetime? Not unless something really freaking dramatic happens. I won't. All right, it's 6:37. We should be winding down. Y'all are much too wired. You're too strung out here. You need to calm down a little bit. Relax, take a deep breath. Let's all take a deep breath. Right?
You're so real, so fine. I'm so glad you're mine. You're so real, so fine. I'm so glad you're mine. You're so real, so fine. I'm so glad you're
If nothing else, man. If nothing else moves you, music ought to move you, don't you think? I don't know if Mark and Ann were here. I'd say that Mark's got this incredible song list. I've been meaning to ask him to just one day be responsible for, 3 or 4 of the songs. I'd take a break because he's much more eclectic in his taste, and I'm pretty eclectic as far as my music taste goes. I mean, I got everything from Catholic choral music and Gregorian chants to salsa to rock to rap. So I kind of I got a lot. But when I look at some of the lists that he creates, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know half of those people. So, anyways, when he shows up, I'll tell him my plan. In the meantime, it's 6:39. time to wind down. I told you to take a deep breath. I played you some wind down music, so you should be ready to practice metta. And metta is so integral to this topic of, who am I? The Buddha said if you were, if you were wise, but you were not compassionate, you were a hollow being. And if you were compassionate without being wise, you were a sucker. So, so this metta we're about to do, this is, the yin yang symbol, right? Yin and yang. And, if wisdom could be perceived as the yang, no reason why it has to be, but I think metta would be yin, and they are integrated. And that's why we're going to practice metta now. All right. You're welcome, Mark. All right. I put my hands before my heart as if in prayer. I bow my head. I close my eyes. I take a deep breath. And I think, and I invite you to think to yourself, may I be happy, healthy, free from harm. May I be free from anger, anxiety, and fear. And may this practice lead me to a life of greater peace and comfort in my life. And may my mother and father, all my living relatives, and all my friends be happy, be healthy, and free from all harm. May they too travel a path that brings them greater peace and comfort in their lives. And may those persons I think of harmed me, I feel offended or resentful of something they did. They spoke to me without skill. But now I react with metta. May those persons be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May they too be enjoying their lives, peace, comfort, and joy. And to all living beings throughout the entire universe, this ever-expanding universe, home to so many humans and non-humans, we send them all goodwill that they may be happy, healthy, free from harm. May they live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Well, thank you, Joan, and thank you, Kathy. You have a great evening, too. Thank you, Mark and Ann and Chris and Becky and Rachel. And, anybody else that showed up, like Lisa. Maybe Ray Dean will stop in later, or any number of other people. And if they do, if they hear this, then I hope they drop a note, say hello. All right. See y'all.